Short hair, powdery skin, and useless degrees? Beauty standards may be constantly evolving, but the things men found attractive a century ago were quite different from today. As the 1920s rolled in, life changed drastically for American women. Not only had they secured the right to vote, but they'd also become a vital part of the country's workforce. As such, women began to reevaluate their roles in society and push back against the norms of the previous generation. These ideas ultimately gave rise to flappers, a subculture of women who dressed and behaved in shockingly unconventional ways.
During the 20s, I think women saw the most radical change in fashion.
Flappers were known for their short hair and skimpy clothes, as well as their penchant for drinking, smoking, and swearing. To the older generation, these women were a walking nightmare. But while the older folks may have sneered at these rebellious women, young men were completely smitten. Thanks to the popularization of contraceptive devices in the 1920s, women also felt more empowered to express their sexuality. Men and women began socializing at speakeasies, which helped normalize the concept of casual dating. As a result, some women rejected old notions about chastity and partook in premarital sex. Of course, men were just as eager to explore their carnal urges. Thus, many of them were attracted to free-spirited flapper types. In the 1920s, beauty standards saw a major transformation. In the previous decade, men desired an hourglass figure. However, as the Roaring '20s took hold, lean bodies were deemed the most attractive. This new take on the so-called ideal body was popularized by the flapper movement, which featured narrow figures that were often described as boyish. As wide hips and large busts fell out of fashion, some women took to binding their breasts in order to appear slimmer. In other cases, women turned to extreme diets in their quest to achieve a lean body and skinny limbs. The image of the rail-thin flapper was marketed to the public by way of magazines, films, and fashion catalogs, which touted impossibly thin women as the gold standard for beauty and femininity. Men swooned over this particular body type, and women were determined to achieve it. One of the biggest battles women fought in the early 20th century was for the right to vote. In the early 20s, the movement was particularly strong in places like the US, the UK, Canada, and Japan. Women who marched for women's rights were initially considered to be unladylike and militant, but began to use their femininity to win men over to their cause. These stylish suffragists garnered sympathy with men by upending the trope that women who wanted to vote were frumps. Just a few years earlier, being politically active might damage a woman's marriage prospects, but by repackaging the suffragist as a respectable, fashionable, middle-class woman, suffragists around the world began to be seen as attractive and clever rather than unrefined. In the early 1920s, the United States entered an economic boom. Small manufacturers were gradually replaced by giant factories that mass-produced everything from automobiles to household appliances. Due to the rise of mass production, the cosmetics industry flourished.
The cosmetics industry booms as more women adopt the flapper style,
prompting major changes in beauty standards. Eventually, men turned their gaze away from the subtle, natural-looking makeup that dominated the previous decade. Women catered to this shift by sporting a face full of makeup. In the 1920s, women went all out with their beauty routines. A casual makeup look typically consisted of dramatic, kohl-lined eyes, powdery skin, and razor-thin eyebrows. Women used matte lipstick to accentuate the curves of their upper lips, creating the appearance of a luscious, puckery pout. In a 1925 article for The New Republic, journalist Bruce Bliven summed up the appearance of a typical young woman, writing, "She is frankly, heavily made up, not to imitate nature, but for an altogether artificial effect." During this era, women enjoyed unprecedented social and economic opportunities. However, they were still somewhat bound by unrealistic beauty standards. As the world continued opening up to women, many felt pressured to stand out at work, in society, and even in the dating pool. By wearing lots of makeup, women hoped to be noticed by men and to establish their value in an increasingly superficial world. While many men in the 1920s liked the idea of a woman who had a college education, most of them didn't want their future wives to actually put those educations to use. Most people a century ago still believed that a woman's primary place was in the home, and men were looking for wives and mothers rather than career women. Working before marriage was one thing, but the vast majority of women did not have lifelong careers. They were expected to stop working after marriage, or at the very latest, once they had children. Women who were forced to work outside of the home due to economic hardship were pitied for being separated from their families. While most men wanted women to stay at home with their families, the advent of World War I meant many women had to work outside of the home. This was justified because it was considered necessary to support men. During the war, many canteens were set up to serve as recreation centers for men stationed abroad. It was a woman's responsibility to take care of men and children, and American women working in canteens were meant to keep men's spirits up by serving as symbols of home and family. Other women advanced the war effort by enlisting in the military, where they were primarily in clerical positions, freeing up men for combat. Others joined the war as nurses or took on traditional men's work in fields such as construction and transportation, which were left understaffed after many of the men who worked in them went to war. By the 1920s, women had branched out into more diverse areas of work, gradually influencing careers' paths and allowing them more financial independence. Some of the most common jobs for women were teachers, typewriters, launderers, and bookkeepers, according to the U.S. Department of Labor.